This video is coming out on Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving to everybody watching this video if you are watching it on Thanksgiving. If you are not watching it on Thanksgiving, we still need to prepare for Week 12 fantasy football either way. Now, obviously, we've got a lot of games on Thanksgiving Day, and we've got the fantasy football playoffs coming up, which means that we need to maximize our points now and moving forward for the rest of the fantasy football season. And you know that kickers play a large role in this. So today, we're going through the top 12 fantasy football kicker rankings for Week 12 fantasy football. And I am the only fantasy football YouTuber who produces top 12 kicker rankings every single week. So please go down there, drop a like on this video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Number one he's had his place at number one for weeks now. I've got Dustin Hopkins again this week. Dustin Hopkins of the Cleveland Browns is taking on the Denver Broncos in Denver. Dustin Hopkins is quickly become one of the most reliable fantasy kicker options and the best kicker option as far as upside goes for multiple reasons. One of the reasons is because Cleveland's offense has become one of the best offenses for a fantasy kicker. They've got players to get you down there. They've got playmakers that can get you in position. Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, every once in a while, not really. David Njoku, their running game is good. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I do believe, plays a little bit better this week as well. And Dustin Hopkins, you can see on the screen, 11.6 points per game for a fantasy kicker. Those are wide receiver 2 numbers. Those are running back 2 numbers. Finding the right kicker in fantasy football is the best thing you could do to put yourself over the top. Dustin Hopkins could do that for you. He's taking on the Denver Broncos defense, which is so much more improved. They're getting after, they're playing really well, and the Cleveland's offense is going to continue to get him in position to get him 40-yard field goals, 50-yard field goals. Dustin Hopkins just simply has to be at number one until any kind of further notice. Brandon Aubrey of the Dallas Cowboys. One of the Thanksgiving games today, taking on the Washington Commanders in the middle game of today. So Brandon Aubrey has been almost perfect this year. And Brandon Aubrey last week had a little bit of a down ranking for me because I went into this matchup last week and I said, this is a guy who's taking on the Carolina Panthers defense. Who knows how many field goal attempts he'll get? Maybe he'll get like 5 or 6 extra point attempts. He had a better week than I thought. And that's simply because Dallas's offense is going to get you there no matter what. They're going to get you in position. They're going to get you in position against the Commanders today. I like this matchup because not only is Dallas' offense rolling right now, but they're also taking on a division rival, and kickers in divisional matchups tend to do a lot better. So Brandon Aubrey is here at number 2. Jason Myers at number 3. Also, a Thanksgiving game. Tonight against the San Francisco 49ers. Jason Myers has had a massive, he's come out of nowhere, basically as one of the top 3 kickers now in fantasy football. He's had a great past several games, averaging 10.2 fantasy points per game. The problem is he misses kicks. He's missed 5 field goal attempts this year. Perfect on extra points, but 23 out of 28 field goal attempts made. That's the problem and why I ultimately worry about him more than I worry about a guy like Brandon Aubrey, for example. Jason Myers is on a great offense for it, though. Again, similar to Cleveland, playmakers are going to get you there. Quarterback is going to have you stall out. And they're playing the 49ers this week, a division rival that is going to get after Geno Smith, who is already hurt. Seattle is going to get they're going to get Jason Myers into range at least a couple of times, leading to a top 3 kicker performance. Jake Elliott at number 4 of the Philadelphia Eagles, taking on the Buffalo Bills. Jake Elliott has fallen. He's fallen actually not a considerable amount, but I mean, for a while he was at number 1. Then he was at number 2. Now I've dropped him a little bit more. Jake Elliott was a little bit disappointing the other night on Monday night versus the Chiefs. Now you have to take into account in that particular game, that was a game that was rainy. The weather was really bad. And Philadelphia also was perfect. They didn't need Jake Elliott to kick a long field goal. But he can. He absolutely can. And I think this week against Buffalo, it's going to be different. I've got Jake Elliott at 4. I've got Matt Gay at number 5 here of the Indianapolis Colts. Matt Gay, to me, has been a really good fantasy kicker. And I've said this for weeks now. Matt Gay is on the perfect offense for a fantasy kicker. Again, they will get you down there because of playmaking ability and coaching. Their coaching staff is fantastic. That's the matchup you want for a fantasy football kicker. To be on an offense that'll get you down there but doesn't always capitalize. And Matt Gay is taking on the Buccaneers this week. The matchup is good for Indianapolis as an offense as a whole. Matt Gay, I think, is going to continue to be very good this week in fantasy football. Brandon McManus of the Jacksonville Jaguars this week, taking on the Houston Texans at number 6 here. Brandon McManus has been really impressive this year. Like, you can see he's kicking the same amount of field goals as extra points, so there's no leg up there. He's averaging almost 10 fantasy points per game, and this guy's kicked a 56-yard long field goal. The guy's got the leg, he's got the accuracy, and he's got the offense for it. And he's taking on a division rival this week. Houston, I do believe Jackson will be able to put up points against Houston. And I think Brandon McManus actually has a really high ceiling with the possibility that they only score touchdowns because Houston's defense is not particularly great. So I think Brandon McManus is going to be another great play this week. Harrison Butker at number 7 of the Kansas City Chiefs, taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. Divisional matchup is fantastic. You want divisional matchups for your fantasy kickers. And Harrison Butker, it's not been that lopsided this year between field goal attempts and extra point attempts. It has not been that lopsided. And he's perfect. The guy is perfect. And he's kicked a 60-yard long field goal this year. This guy's got the leg, he's got the accuracy, and he's averaging 9.3 fantasy points per game. And he's honestly on an offense that is not nearly as efficient as they have been in years past. And I don't think that's going to change because they don't have the ability to get another top wide receiver playmaking option at this point in the season. Against the Raiders this week, Harrison Butker's still inside my top 10 for sure. Justin Tucker. The resurgence has happened, man. Justin Tucker has done so well recently to be a top 5 kicker again. And this week he's taking on the Chargers. Justin Tucker has come a long way. I'll tell you what. Like, he was, I don't know if you know this, but at the beginning of the season, Justin Tucker was in like the bottom 5 of fantasy football kickers. You can see the numbers on the screen. He's missed 5 attempts this year. Field goals and extra points combined. It's been a down year for him, and he's a Hall of Fame kicker if I've ever seen one. That's why he's having a great second half of the season. The offense is extremely efficient. They're at least going to get you down there. And against the Chargers this week, I think they're going to put up points. Justin Tucker at number 8, comfortably here. Blake Group of the New Orleans Saints this week, taking on the Atlanta Falcons here at number 9. Blake Group has been, like, hot and cold, I would say. I think that Blake Group has a lot of good things coming to him if he can just continue to make more kicks. He's missed 5 field goals this year, though. That's the only problem that it really comes down to. But again, this is a perfect offense for a kicker because New Orleans' offense doesn't always get the ball in the end zone. 24 field goals compared to 19 extra point attempts. That's what we're looking for from a fantasy kicker. What we need him to do is his part. Make the freaking kick. And he has lately. He's done that more lately than he did at the beginning. Blake Group, I think, is going to be fine. A divisional matchup I always love. And I think that regardless of if it's Derek Carr or Jameis Winston, Blake Group's going to be fine this week. Will Lutz at number 10 here. Of the Denver Broncos, taking on the Cleveland Browns. Will Lutz has had a resurgence. Honestly, and it's all tied back to the same thing. I've been big on the Broncos defense lately. I've been big on Javonte Williams. I've risen on Cortland Sutton. I've risen on Russell Wilson. I've risen on Will Lutz. Why? Because this offense is efficient all of a sudden. They're playing great defense now, and they're efficient. Are they a high-scoring offense? No, they're not, because Russell Wilson can't do that anymore. But what he can do is be efficient, and he's been exactly that, and it doesn't always lead to touchdowns. Will Lutz, 24 field goal opportunities compared to 17 extra point attempts, and he's averaging 9 fantasy points per game. Specifically over the past 4 games, has been a really good fantasy kicker. Will Lutz, I think, continues his trend this week because I just think that he's in a perfect offense for a fantasy kicker. So similar to New Orleans, so similar to Indianapolis, so similar to Cleveland, similar to the Ravens, except not even as efficient getting in the end zone as the Baltimore Ravens. Denver's kicker, Will Lutz, got to be here in the top 10. Nick Folk at number 11 here, the godfather of the NFL, of the Tennessee Titans taking on the Carolina Panthers this week. Nick Folk is just like, last week I had him inside the top 10 and he disappointed. There's no question about it. And honestly, what it ultimately comes down to here is that Nick Folk is never the problem. Like, you know how your grandpa, like when he gets to a certain age and he still wants to climb up the ladder and you're like, don't do it. Like, it's not a good idea. And a lot of the times he's fine. That's kind of how Nick Folk is at this point. Like, he's fine. He's only missed one kick this year. He's not the problem. Tennessee's offense is the problem. I think they'll be better this week against the Carolina Panthers because how can you not be? So I think Nick Folk is going to find some more opportunities this week. And Jake Moody rounding out the top 12, taking on the Seattle Seahawks on Thanksgiving night tonight. So Jake Moody, this offense is simply just becoming too explosive for him to keep up as a top 5 fantasy kicker anymore. They're just finding the end zone too much. 33 extra point attempts compared to 19 field goal attempts. This offense is just becoming too good. Not that Jake Moody can't be a good fantasy option. Of course he can be. And I think he will be. It's a divisional matchup against Seattle tonight. I like that a lot. So I think Jake Moody, just from the offensive upside perspective, still is going to have plenty of opportunities to kick a ball. I just don't know how many field goals he'll kick compared to extra point attempts. But this week, I think there will be a couple more field goals this week. So let me know what you think of the rankings in the comments below and what questions you need answered before Week 12 Fantasy Football. And if you want to see the top 12 defense rankings for Week 12 Fantasy Football, click on this video right here.